Morgan, you also wanted to talk about another topic that's important to you and that you've been involved in regarding sex trafficking. Talk to us about that.
Well, it's very it's coming to the forefront now. It's been swept under the carpet for a very long time, especially out here in Hollywood. I've been working with Paul Peterson, who used to be on the Donna Reed show. He has an organization called A Minor Consideration. For years and years and decades, he's had this organization to help young children who are being abused in Hollywood. Forced to do things that they shouldn't be doing projects that they shouldn't be doing. And we've tried to get legislation passed. We've literally, he and his organization and groups, and I've been helping, have tried to speak to Congress people over the decades, and they just would give us lip service. Oh, yeah, we'll look into it. Well, it's gotten to a point now where it's so dark and so evil, and with the Jeffrey Epstein thing exploding like it did, they're finding out now that there is so much horror and evil that's going on with children and the trafficking. And just last week in Georgia, they rescued 36 children from sex traffickers, and they're locking up the perpetrators here. I mean, they're finally doing it, and Donald Trump is saying, I want this brought to the forefront. I want it brought. You can't imagine, John, how almost impossible it was. I went on, remember when Hannity and Combs was on the air, and Combs was alive? It was in the very beginning of Fox's years. I went on and talked about a film that Dakota Fanning was making, and she was 15, I think. It was being shot in North Carolina, and a crew member sent Paul a script and a phone call, and he said, I had to quit this movie. You've got to do something. This child is doing rape scenes every single day over and over and over again. They're having her dance in her underwear seductively in front of a boy. And he said, it's making me sick. There's crew members, we're leaving, we're quitting. Please read this. Please do something. We got in touch with North Carolina governor, and it was like, well, her parents are okay with it. We can't step in and do anything. If they're okay with it, Screen Actors Guild. If the parents are okay with it, we can't do anything. It was so frustrating, and I told Hannity and Combs that night, I said, something has to be done. This is just crazy. This is going on. You've got Corey Feldman talking about pedophilia and the abuse of young boys in Hollywood, producers that abuse these children, and it's people have got to wake up to the fact that this is going on, and it's still going on. And underage girls that are models are being taken away to Europe. They're sent over to Saudi Arabia or the Emirates, and they're sex slaves, basically. And they're beautiful young girls and models, and they disappear, and you never see them again. This is horrible. And it's down to children, little children, 3 years old, 2 years old. I mean, it's a horrible thing. And I'm trying to get the word out to people. When this Netflix thing came out a couple of weeks ago, promoting this movie they have called Cuties, about an 11-year-old girl who joins a dance group, a twerking sexual dance group. And the poster for it was just disgusting, of an 11-year-old. I mean, it's a pedophile's dream to watch this, and Netflix is putting it out mainstream. They take Gone with the Wind off of Netflix and put this on. This shows you where they are. So we're fighting. Paul's still in the trenches fighting. Allison Arngrim, who used to be on Little House on the Prairie, she's fighting. We have so many people that are trying to help these kids. But Donald Trump, at least, is with law enforcement, with the marshals, with the Border Patrol, stopping this stuff. And he's not getting any publicity for it. basically nobody's talking about what he's doing. So this is something people have to wake up to, the fact that this is going on with kids, and it's got to stop.
Right. Which almost sounds, you described that, it almost sounds like the plot from the movie Taken.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, they absolutely. It's very, very similar. But the thing is that children are expendable to
Right.
these people. They don't treat them as human beings. They're toys to be played with. These young girls that are 14 and 13 years old, they're just toys to be used and then discarded. It's pathetic. I grew up in Hollywood. I saw what was going on. I knew the parties you get invited to when you were a preteen. I mean, seriously? Drew Barrymore wrote about it in her book, about how her mother used to take her to these parties, and she'd drink at 11 and 12 years old, and then she'd smoke in the back room with some guy. I mean, this is Hollywood. This is what they do, and they don't think anything about it. It's very, very sad. It's very pathetic. They exploit children, and we've been, like I said, we've been fighting it and fighting it and fighting it, and we take one step forward and then two steps backward because something else comes up for these politicians that is more politically, expedient for them. They would rather do that rather than tackle child abuse, because child abuse, it's it's a touchy subject,
Right. Wow. It's despicable and evil. That's just pure evil.
Well, it is. It's satanic, and look at Jodie Foster. She was 12, and she played a prostitute in New York. I mean, this is why do you do that? Why do you need that? I remember being a kid actor, and a lot of producers that were still decent back then, they would say, "Gosh, I wish you were 18 and you looked 14, because I don't want to use a 14-year-old to do this." They wanted somebody that was of legal age to make their own decision. But now it's gotten to the point where the parents are so greedy. They want the money and they want the fame. If you look at these beauty pageants, these little girls that go out and get dressed up and makeup and hair and the whole thing, it's like, really? I mean, it's just not right. But it's been like that for decade after decade after decade. And somehow people have got to protect these kids.
When did that start? Was this prominent back in like the golden age of Hollywood?
Well, yeah, Natalie Wood, when she was 16, she really wanted to do Rebel Without a Cause, and she was 16. And her mother basically introduced her to the director and said she really wants this part, and she stayed with him at the Chateau Marmont or whatever, said 16. I mean, her mother basically gave her away.
Wow.
And it's been like that, but it hasn't been as rampant as it is now. And it hasn't been as, nobody really knew about it like they know about it now. I mean, people within Hollywood, it's just like Harvey Weinstein. Everybody knew about Harvey Weinstein. Everybody knew it. Everybody just kind of looked the other way. It's the same way it is with these underage kids.
Wow. I mean, what kind of parent would put their kids through stuff like that? I just...
well, it's funny because when you talk to the parents, which Paul and I used to do seminars at SAG when there were new members coming in, and we would tell them, we would tell them the pitfalls and what you can expect in the business. And when you talk to these parents, they'd come up to you with little bitty kids, and they'd say, "Oh, they really, really want to do this. They really want to be stars. And that's not coming from the child.
Yeah.
That's coming from the parent. They really want to do it, and so they end up living through their kids. I know that. That's what happened to me. I know that. Mm-hmm. So believe me when I tell you, it scars people for life. So many of these kids grow up and become drug addicted, alcoholics, suicide, whatever.
Right.
You know, little Buffy from Family Affair killed herself because she just couldn't handle it. All you are is you're just a product as a child. You're paraded out, you make money, you do what they ask you to do, and the minute you start to grow up or you know, become an adult, you're no use to them anymore. So you're thrown aside, and they go, have a great life, and it's over.
Right.
So this is what happens to these beautiful, beautiful young girls that are 14, 15 years old getting into the modeling business. And they're conned by these people who say, oh, we'll give you a contract. Oh, we'll give you money. You'll be flying all over to Europe. You'll be doing this. You'll be doing that. It's a con. And it goes on every single day.
Wow. Well, thank God you were able to escape that, Morgan.
I was. I mean, I like I said, I've been guided by my faith my whole life. I have been watched over by the Lord and guided in the right direction. And whenever I would have a question, whenever I would have a dilemma, I would just put it in his hands and say, you lead me the way I'm supposed to go.
Wow.
And unfortunately, these kids that go into the business, they're not grounded like that. They're not. They're manipulated by parents that just want the money.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of money. It's a lot. And, you know, Jack worked with Macaulay Culkin. We saw what happened there. I mean, it's just, you know, it's criminal.
It does explain why I've often wondered why all these kids ended up being addicted to alcohol or other types of drugs. I thought it was just that they couldn't handle the fame and fortune, but now we know, you know, and the people closest to you can't trust them and they control you. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, believe me, when I was a little girl, I saw agents parade little girls in and say, oh, hey, baby, go sit on his lap over there and you just show Mr. So-and-so how talented you are.
Wow.
And they're 7 years old, 6 years old, and they go sit on some producer's lap. I mean, it's disgusting. That's what I grew up with. That's the town I grew up in.
Wow. Wow.
We need, as citizens of this country, we need to open our eyes to what's going on, and we need to wake up, and we need to go to find out exactly what's going on in your area, where you live, if your police department's on it, if they know anything about it, because it happens in your neighborhoods. It really does.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. My
And
daughter.
that's what we're doing. That's what we're trying to do out here. I mean, you know, the people that I'm working with.
And my daughter was telling, you know, you're talking about the models and the movie stars, but it's also prevalent in the recording industry. My daughter was just telling me recently where she had read that Brittany Spears' father still has 100% control over everything in her life financially, and
Yep.
that kind of explains why she had a mental meltdown, you know, what was it, 15 years ago now? So, you know, and people look at these stars and say, well, God, they got all the money. Why aren't they happy? I'm glad you brought this up because, I mean, sometimes it's just not their fault, you know?
No, it isn't their fault. And, I mean, they're sexualizing our children at such an early age now. If you look at curriculums in high school, not high school, in schools, what they're teaching them. I mean, it's unbelievable what they're teaching in primary schools. And if, as a parent, you don't see it and you don't put a stop to it and go to the school board and say, no, enough is enough. You're not teaching my child this.
Wow.
But they want the sexualization to be normal to these children so that if they're approached, they're not afraid. You see?
Right.
It's an underlying just horror that goes on. They want children to be comfortable with it.
Wow. Well, not only is evil, this is straight from the pits of hell. You know.
Yeah. Oh, it is. Oh, it is. I mean, I hate getting into dark subjects like this. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't help my psyche very much.
Right.
Because I have to relive basically growing up as a child actor. I have to relive it.
Yeah.
But I know that it has to be talked about, and it has to be, the light's got to go on, and people have got to go, enough is enough, we're not doing this anymore.
Well, even, your career coming up and even into today, are there some people in Hollywood, are there good guys out there that are trying to put a stop to this in addition to what you're doing?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of us. And there's people that work in other ways. They work with the girls that they're bringing across the border, the illegals that they bring in, and then they sell them to whoever can buy them, for the night or for the day or for whatever. But these are all girls that come across. They've been sent by their parents from South and Central America. I know a lot of people that work trying to break this up, and that's in regular neighborhoods. There'll be 15 or 20 girls living in a house in a suburban neighborhood, and you'll see people going in and out, all the time. And people don't understand. There's people going in there. That's trafficking, and there's huge amounts of money in it. That's why it doesn't get. It's like drugs. There's so many people on the take that it's worth it to them. But
Wow.
what happens to these kids? What happens to them?
Yeah. And I guess I didn't realize. I figured it was an issue in Hollywood, but you just brought it home. It's in your neighborhood. I didn't. I
It
never
is
really
in
thought
your
about
neighborhood. It is child pornography, all of it. I mean, from what Paul and I have discovered, what people that we talk to in child trafficking organizations, and the things that we've talked about that we didn't even know, that we had no idea. And once you open your eyes to the fact, you start seeing things, and you start questioning and going, wait a second, this isn't right. Something's not right here. And you get onto the networks, and you get onto the cable shows, and you say, I'm not going to subscribe to you anymore if you put this trash out there.
Right.
And people, they respond to that. When when people start taking their money away, that's when they respond to it.
Right. Yes.
You can see the decay of our culture. You can see how over the decades it's just deteriorated more and more and more. I mean, we thought Madonna, when she hit the scene, was scandalous with what she did on stage, and people were just appalled by it. That's nothing anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the lyrics in the songs that our children listen to. Anything they can access on their phones, on their tablets, it's all there. We've got to figure out a way to rein this in and get some kind of cultural shift somehow. We've got to. I don't want to have to go out and listen and talk to people and know all of this. I don't, but I have to. I feel I have to. Right. Because I've got something to contribute, because I've seen it, and I've been a part of that society. I've been a part of it. Mm-hmm. And if I can do anything to help these people in any possible way, I will do it. Believe me, John, I talk to young girls that want to be models. They want to be models. They want to be on a magazine cover. And I tell them, I sit down and I say, listen to me. Here's what you don't want to believe. Here's what you don't, and a lot of it goes over their head, but some of it does resonate. Girls will walk out, and I'll ask them, I'll say, if somebody says this to you, will you leave the room? Will you be willing to walk away? And a lot of them say, yes, I would. And they tend to think they have to do this stuff in order to be famous. But you don't. I'm proof of that. You don't. So, if there's any way that I can help these kids, wherever they may be, in Missouri or Iowa, or they want to come to Hollywood, they want to, whatever I can do, I will.
Well, God bless you in the work you're doing. You're doing the Lord's work along with Paul and many of the others.
Yes, Alice and Arngrim, so many of them. Minor organization. If anybody cares to go on the website, they tell you what they do. Paul, takes donations. I support him financially, when I can, and believe me, he's one of the voices from the very early days that started people realizing what was going on.
Now, tell folks where the website is, where they go to do this.
They just Google it. It's called A Minor Organization.
Okay.
A minor consideration. Sorry.
Okay. Cool.